Hi, hello, welcome. I'm everyone's favorite unkempt snuggle pepper, here to do another art crit from art that was posted on Reddit's art crit subreddit. So we'll do a critique on the anatomy of this pose. I also want to talk about a few character choices. Anywho, choices in regards to your character. So anywho, let's begin. Let's jump right in. So number one, I think something that's going to help you, how I learned anatomy was by reading Andrew Loomis's Figure Study for All It's Worth. It's one of my favorite books. He draws mostly the nude female figure, and so I drew a lot of very feminine looking men when I was in junior high learning to draw people for the first time. But anywho, I highly recommend it. He breaks down a lot of different things and how to do various measurements around the body and whatnot. So this pose is somewhat awkward. This is not how a person would naturally stand. So I'm going to take a little bit of liberty and I'm going to kind of guess what I think the pose you're thinking of. And part of that is just building our visual library. That's looking at a lot of character drawings and various studies. So let's get into it. First, you draw this nice line going down the middle, and then you have the chest not really following that. So I like to draw in the rib cage to give myself the reminder that we have to have a fair amount of mass right here, because this is where the lungs and heart are, and the rib cage is fairly solid. Like, obviously there's space between ribs, but it is a fairly solid part of the body. The other part of the body I tend to draw in are going to be my hips, because then I'm thinking of my hips as sockets, which they are. They are big sockets, and that'll help there. I understand he's an elf and he's going to be a little bit more elongated, but stay with me. This is too long. The one way we can draw a circle and see that his elbow should be there if his hand is out like that. However, that is a very strange position to have one's hand in. To hold it out to the side that far in profile and to turn his hand in such a manner. So I'm thinking he's holding his hand up like this. Like in front of him more than to his side. And that he's holding like a fancy gold coin. I firmly believe that the hands are a great way to show expression and to show character. So the next is having his hand like this. I think I'm going to assume that you meant for his arm to be kind of like loosely at his side. Or you're thinking of putting his hand on his hip, which would then go there. And then go out to the side like so. Now, if we have the hand on a hip, his heels, the back of his feet, are not on the same plane. This one comes further down. So he's either standing lopsided or one foot is coming forward. I think, so we have the hips, right? Perhaps you meant for this hip to go up and this hip to go down, so this leg is slightly bent. So I think that's the approach we're going to take. He's a little bit sassy, so we're going to draw this hip here. We're going to draw this hip goes down a little. So this foot, this leg, comes down more like this, and this foot is more bent. and turns out a little bit more. Okay. So I'm going to take a soft eraser. I'm in Clip Studio. I have a soft eraser as a preset, and I'm going to kind of lighten that a little bit. And then we're going to go in with more detail. Okay, so he has a pretty angry expression on his face. Looks angry to me. So we have eyebrows coming down like so. I'm not going in that deep with the eyes. I'm pretty simple. A nose. It looks like he's yelling at us. Make sure when someone is yelling, ooh, that eraser can come down a little in size. When someone is yelling, their jaw does open a little bit. Or a lot of it, depending on how much they're yelling at you. So take that into consideration in facial expressions. Next, I suppose, yeah, you could have your hair come in front like that. Hair generally kind of comes to a point more than the straighter sort of style you gave him. Now, to have straight ends like this, you would have a bit more of a blunter cut. Make sure we include that Adam's apple. Okay. You call this a real coin? Another note, if we were going to go with the original pose and we move his bicep in, these fingers are very different in size compared to these fingers. So be sure to be comparing your hand sizes. The hand is about the same size as the face. And now we'll keep going. We're good. All right. So we have his chest that is solid. A note on rolled up sleeves, since we're on anatomy, and the bend of the arm. So fabric moves with the body. So if we're going to have rolled up sleeves, they're going to stick out a bit more from the body. And I highly recommend not only studying the clothed figure, but the nude figure and all of that good stuff. There are a lot of good tutorials about the tension and the release of fabric. Probably better than I can explain. And various bits of armor. I'm going to guess, based on these little accessories down here, that he is a rogue. We'll keep him in his roguely attire. That neckline right there. Asymmetrical. All right. That looks like he has tears in his shirt. Oh, another note, using really thin line art, shows a lot more mistakes than using a slightly thicker line art or a pressure responsive line art. I actually have a video on YouTube, where I talk about line art and line weight. Because when I'm drawing like this, I'm sketching, and so my lines aren't going to connect. But when I do line art, I try to go through where I'm going and then go back and erase it. And the thinner your line art, the more you're going to notice those little sketches where things don't necessarily line up. and such like. So he's standing there, and then we'll erase this. Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to do tears. Looks like he might have like some tattered clothing. And then we have that hand on his hip. Notice that when we put our hand on our hip, the hand goes kind of further back and we mostly just see the fingers. And then the thumb up there. That may not be the most comfortable position with his arm guards on. Stand with his hand on a hip. It depends. Right, so one of the reasons I also drew the hips as sockets, here, usually someone only has a thigh gap if they're very, very thin or their legs are further apart. For him to be standing with his feet only shoulder width apart, most likely his legs are going to be touching. Along with the rolled up sleeves, having a belt, especially a belt that's going to be holding your accessories, is going to stick out a little bit. Quick note on belt loops. Usually they are the same fabric as your pants, as that's what's holding the belt on. There's his fancy utility belt. I'm going to erase hips. Also, I'm going to guess that he is male. I've been under that assumption. I don't want to assume anyone's gender. Unless you are tucking things away, generally that's not what would happen with a thigh gap on a man. So I'm also going to put his belt at more of an angle to show that one hip is up and one hip is down. Clean up his legs a bit. And because that one hip is out, this will come out just a little bit and go back down. Forward. Don't forget those good old calf muscles. Yeah, one of the issues you run into is even though he's thin, he should still have like a fair amount of calf muscle. And then around his thigh, we'll put the extra belt. Now, a note on characters and accessories. This is a very small, I'm going to assume poison bottle, and this is a very small dagger. Yeah, so dagger probably goes on the outside rather than the inside, so you aren't stabbing yourself. I'm going to, where did I put a potion bottle? Would I put it up front? Yeah. So this is why we sketch, because it's easy to erase. We can do a lot of erasing. There's a band that goes over it. And we can see its little quirk. Here we go. I put it higher up, so I kind of lost his extra pouches, but we'll add some pouches over here. It's important to consider the size in relationship to things around it. So if we're going to have character accessories, we want to have a dagger in relation to his size. And most daggers, most things of that nature are going to be at least the size of a kitchen knife. So that thing. I have another bag hanging off of it. There we go. All of his little lock picks and whatnot hiding in there. Again with visual library, highly recommend going on Pinterest and looking up assassin's belt. Starting with those search terms and going on. And then we got some thigh-high boots. Yeah, you did come out a little bit for the boots to show that they are thicker than his pants. Very good. And then we're going to have one foot straight forward, so there would be his toe. And this foot, see, now I'm putting the back of his foot on the same plane. Even though he's going to turn this out a little bit. Okay, let's zoom out. Woo, sorry, that got bright fast. Okay. Good job working on gray though. That does help you see colors a little better. Otherwise, this is much too bright. This is good for sketching, but not for color. So that's how I would improve the anatomy on that one. Yeah, see, we still have, he's still pretty thin, but we are more atomically accurate. When we look at, I know what we'll do. You know, when we look at the thighs and the hips and the legs, the femur, I hope that's the femur, the bone that goes through your upper thigh is the biggest bone in the body. So your thighs are going to be, they're going to have a bit more weight to them than compared to say the arm. And he is still fairly thin. We could even thin him down a little bit and not get him, this is starting to get a little too thin. A little thinner than you would expect him to be. Right? I mean, we still have to have muscle and whatnot on the bones. So, yeah, that's his asymmetrical collar. So, I think this pose is a little bit more dynamic. His feet, or at least on the same plane. His arms look less awkward. I'm still not 100% happy with his legs, even on my drawing. I would go on Pinterest and look up standing with hand on hip and work on that. Both of us. We'll both go on Pinterest and do studies. It'll be great. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that gave a bit more information on anatomy and how to look at anatomy. Again, Andrew Loomis Figure Study, for all it's worth, it really helps in breaking down the parts of the body, what sizes to look out for in relationship to each other, stuff like that. All that good stuff. Yeah, until next time.